Hey guys, this is Miss Arlequin, and in today's lesson we are going to talk about how to craft an engaging lead for an essay with a focus on using the quotation strategy. Alright, so today we're going to look at different ways that we can incorporate quotations as the engaging lead or hook for an argumentative essay. Although this is a strategy that can be used for any type of essay, it just so happens though that for our current essay task, it is going to be an argumentative essay. And as you can see on the screen, our essay assignment is to answer the following question. Is empathy an inherent part of human nature? Persuade your reader using evidence from the novel Wonder. Alright, so when we talk about our engaging leads or hooks, we're talking about the first sentence or a few sentences. And they're really meant to lead your reader into the specific topics of your essay. And more importantly, it's meant to hook them in, to capture their interest and make them want to keep reading. It should really jumpstart your reader's brain and make them start thinking in a general kind of way about the topics of your essay. Now, quotation leads are a really great strategy for engaging your reader. They make connections that get your reader thinking about the real world and how your essay relates to it. One thing you can do is you can cite a related comment or quote from someone whom the audience already respects, and that gives your essay a little bit of authority. It could be a quotation that relates to the theme of the text or the central idea of your essay, or it could be a quote that relates to the argument that you're going to be making. So, for example, let's say we had a task where we had to write a literary essay where we had to analyze the character of Alan in The Chaser. So, every time I have an essay task in front of me, the first thing I do is I think about what the specific topics of my essay are. Because, again, it's those specific topics that you're going to use to A, formulate your thesis, and then B, formulate your engaging lead. Because you're going to want to take those specific topics and introduce them in a general kind of way. So in this particular prompt, my specific topics are the title of the story, The Chaser, the character I'm going to be writing about, Alan, and then the two character traits that I'm choosing to focus on. When I think back to The Chaser, two character traits that I would automatically, right off the top of the bat, think about for Alan would be that he is desperate and also that he is lovesick. So what I would do here is I would look for a quotation that had something to do with the two character traits that I've chosen for Alan. So I would look for a quote that had something to do with being desperate and maybe what people do when they're desperate, or a quotation about being lovesick, and again, something that relates to how people behave when they're feeling lovesick, the effect of feeling desperate, the effect of feeling lovesick. Now, when I choose a quotation, one of the things I'm going to have to do is I'm actually going to have to choose it. And so to find the quote that connects to your topic, you're going to want to, number one, use the internet since it is such a great resource. And there are a lot of websites that have quotations from famous people, from books, from history, from famous people. A really well-known one is thinkexist.com. And a good source for author quotes is Famous Quotes and Authors. But you really could also just do a general Google search where you type for a specific keyword related to what you're looking for. So for my Chaser essay, I would search, going back to the previous slide, I would search for quotations about being desperate, or quotations about desperation, or quotations about being lovesick. Now, even when you go to these websites, if you're not going to go to a general Google search, you're going to want to make sure that you make your keyword search specific. So again, you're going to think about what specific topic you want to search for a quotation about, or if it's a specific person, you'll search for that specific person's name. Alright, so one way that you can find a quotation, as I mentioned, is through the internet. And so you want to make sure that once you've chosen your quotation, you always want to make sure that you're citing the quotation. And since this is coming from the internet, you're going to, in parentheses, not put a page number like we do when we're quoting evidence from a text, but you're going to be quoting the actual website. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "We gain strength and courage and confidence by each experience in which we really stop to look fear in the face. We must do that which we think we cannot." And so as you can see, I end my quotation with my closing quotation mark, and then I put just the beginning part of the website address, the part that has the main domain name, think exist, and then the .com, or it might be a .org or a .edu. A lot of times the website that you're going to find your quote from is actually going to be longer than this. There's going to be a backslash mark and maybe some numbers or additional words that come after the .com. You do not need to cite the entire address. Again, you only need the domain part of it, the part that comes before the .com, and then whatever the .com is. Again, whether it's a .com, a .edu, or a .org. Now, this is just the beginning sentence of my essay introduction, the quote, but I do want to elaborate a little more in my lead. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain what the quote means to me, and I'll make a connection between the quote, possibly the text that I'll be writing about. I can make a text-to-self connection or a text-to-world connection. And so, for example, with this quote, I might make a connection to people in general having strength and courage and confidence. So I might say something like, many people find it difficult to have strength and be courageous. However, it's something that we learn to do through experience. You can also find your quote from a book. For example, in Wonder, we have a lot of quotations that start each section of the different characters' points of view. And so I might decide that I want to use one of those quotes to be my opening quotation, or I might want to choose a quote from another famous book that relates to the one that I'm going to be writing about, or the topic I'm going to be writing about. And so in that case, you are citing your quote the same way you would any kind of text evidence, with the author's name and then the page number. And just like the previous quotation, I'm going to follow up that first sentence, which contains the quote, with an explanation of what the quote means to me. Again, a text-to-text, a text-to-self, or a text-to-world connection. And then finally, you might decide that you want to actually quote an entry from a dictionary, which is almost a combination of two strategies. You're combining the quotation strategy with an engaging lead strategy where you give a definition of your topic. And you might find that if you're writing about something that your readers might not have a lot of prior knowledge about, like, for example, empathy, you might want to define empathy for them as your engaging lead. That way you're engaging them with a quote and you're also providing them with background. So in this case, you would cite your quotation the same way you would whether it was any piece of text evidence. In this case, I actually decided to start my sentence by identifying the title of the book that my quotation is coming from, Webster's New World College Dictionary. Since I mentioned the title here, I'm not putting anything except the page number here, particularly because dictionaries don't really have single authors that we have to give credit to. Again, after I have my quotation, I'm going to follow it up with explanation. Alright, so now let's look at a sample introductory paragraph from our Wonder performance-based task essay. The famous film critic Roger Ebert once stated, "I believe empathy is the most essential quality of civilization," from ThinkQuest.com. In other words, Ebert is trying to communicate how significant empathy is to the building of a civilized society. It is what leads to many people's benevolence and consideration of others. Many authors explore the theme of empathy in their writing. One such author is R.J. Palacio. In her novel, Wonder, Palacio illustrates that empathy is an inherent part of human nature. Alright, so as you can see, I've taken my quotation and I've used it as my engaging lead. I've cited the specific website where I got the quote from, and then I followed up with about 2 sentences where I explain the quote and I make a connection and elaborate on it a little bit. And then I continue my introduction with the next two steps. I write my connecting sentences, where I introduce the fact that this essay is not just about empathy, it's about authors who write about the theme of empathy. I introduce the name of the specific author I'm going to be writing about, and then I end with my thesis statement. So now you can take this strategy and what you've learned from this video lesson and apply it to the beginning of your essay.